All right, we'll get started now. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a weekend edition of Crypto World Radio. And I'm thinking about setting a segment for Saturdays labeled Tech Talk, maybe on Sundays as well. I'm not sure which one um, is going to work out towards, but I know last weekend on Saturday we had a Tech Talk segment, which is pretty nice. So today we're here joined by the guys from GG Quest. Unfortunately, one of the speakers wasn't able to make it. We'll have him on probably in the next 2 weeks or so. So without further ado, if you guys want to join our Discord, it's up on our bio at the Because Bitcoin Twitter page, and feel free to check out our trading competition. It's in the pinned tweet, and also I want to thank you guys again and inform you that all of our spaces are re-uploaded onto our YouTube channel 5 to 10 minutes after our space is concluded. So without further ado, I want to thank you. I want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your weekend to come here and join us on my spaces. And see, we have Payne. What's going on, Payne? Thank you for coming through, bro. I hope you're doing all
What's going
right.
on, man?
Doing great. Yo, we have Joe in here as well. What's going on, Joe? I love
Hey,
this
what's up,
guy. I
Joe?
love this guy, bro. Cosmos Joe. I think I'm gonna be hosting him, like not next week, but probably the week after. I'm super excited for that too. So without further ado, Rick, Steve, I want to welcome you guys to the show. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing lovely. Thanks for having me. I must admit that it's my first space, so it's quite an experience. But I'm happy to be here with all the folks on Saturday nights, just enjoying some crypto on Twitter.
No problem, man. We're welcoming to people that love spaces and people that are quite new to them, man. So you'll be in good hands, brother. What's going on,
Thank
Steven?
you.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I was actually had a 30 minutes notice for this Twitter space since Dace had a scheduling conflict, and he just pulled up saying, "Hey, you free?" And it's actually 6 a.m. here in Australia, and I was about to head out to sleep, but that's good. I'll jump on it anyway, give it a crack. But yeah, just happy to join in. Yeah, curious on how this all works, and looking forward to it.
No problem, man. So I guess we can get started. Rick, I usually have like a free discussion, but
Yeah, sure.
given that I'm quite new to what you guys do at GG Quest and all the things that you guys are involved in,
Yeah.
I want to take a more relaxed approach and kind of find out what you guys are about and what you
Mhm.
guys are seeing within the industry. So why don't you go ahead and tell us what GG Quest is all about and what you guys have been seeing in the background as far as
Yeah.
things like GameFi and the Metaverse and things of that nature.
Yeah, well, perhaps I can start a bit with my background and then it will make more sense why I started GG Quest as well. So I used to be a gamer my whole life. So since I was 6 years old, I was playing on a Pentium 2, Age of Empires 2. And then I evolved into the gaming space. And at some point in my gaming career, as I can say it, I used to be a professional gamer. So I played professionally Counter-Strike Source, and then semi-professionally Dota 2. I played a lot of other competitive games, let's say. And from there, I was seeing a lot of abuse in my games. There was like one LAN party that I still remember at this day when I was playing Counter-Strike, where people actually were cheating against me on a LAN party. But you have to understand that like 15 years ago, when I was professional, there was not a lot of money on the line. It's not like the esports of today. We were basically playing for creative Red Bull for a few $100. And so, yeah, people were cheating even then with very sophisticated cheats, but just for the clout, just to gain and earn reputation. At some point, we had a LAN final on a podium, on a stage, and people were watching our screens and the opponent screens, and the people against us were cheating with a aimbot, so they could target our heads in a first-person shooter automatically. And that cheat was plugged in the mouse memory because we had to play on the computers of the organization. So it was quite advanced. And then I had keyboard key binding, and I could toggle on and off that cheat. And that's where 15 years ago, like I said, where there was like nothing on the line. And then I jumped into crypto like 3 years ago, let's say. Full time, I co-created a venture DAO named Honey DAO. And then from there, I was seeing the gaming industry, gaming crypto popping up, how you want to name it, pay to earn, pay to own, or whatever, blockchain gaming. And for me, there is like one big thing. I'm very passionate about gaming. I always hated cheating, bad behavior, and in general. And I think that will be a major issue in our vertical, in the Web3 gaming vertical in general, because right now there is incentives on the line to do it. You can earn some tokens, or you can earn an NFT by playing games, you know. So imagine if you were just cheating just for the fun. Now suddenly you can earn money with it. And it's not that difficult, you know, like most of the Web3 games, they are built on the same game engine as Web2, like Unity or Unreal. I don't want to incentivize anyone to cheat, but you have some private forums, you can buy some cheats on it. They will be made custom to the game, you know, you pay a few $100. And yeah, you can earn. Perhaps it will be a good return on incentive. And we have seen like the first problems, I would say, with Dookie Dash, where money was on the line. It was exploited a lot, right? And so, yeah, there come out the idea of GG Quest. We have been looking at as professional and casual gamers, but also as crypto natives, as degens like Steven and Dace. We are very close in the latest Web3 trends, and so we are looking at what is missing in the Web3 vertical. And so we have built tools to prevent what I was explaining, or we are building, and also to see how we can improve the vertical, so we can help like everyone that hates NFTs in Web2 love like Web3 games. I think we have a lot to do, so that's what we are building with GG Quest, trying to solve the problems of the Web3 vertical, to onboard and to give a fair experience, good experience to gamers in general, in Web3 gamers.
And are you guys multi-chain, or are you guys focusing on something specific like Ethereum, Avalanche?
So right now, what we are building, or where we stand, so we started at the ETC Paris Hackathon in July, where we managed to grab a first place for the gaming track. And from there, we had a lot of momentum. We have been developing, making the team bigger, onboarding developers and other people. And so what we are about to launch our MVP, which will be an engagement platform for quests, which I will go deeper into it later on. And this is built right now on Polygon, but it can easily be deployed on other EVM chains, as we know. And we're planning also to be chain agnostic and to go on immutable. We received a NEAR grant, so we built or are building on NEAR as well. So every, let's say, blockchain that is focused on gaming, we'll try to be on.
And how do you guys envision how GameFi and Metaverse is going to be a few years from now? Because at the current moment, the only build that we really have are things like Sandbox and Metaverse, and there's a missing key element. There's a missing key element, and I think the focus should be more along the lines of how do we capture the attention of the individuals that are in Web2, right? The guys that are playing Fortnite, Call of Duty, Diablo, games like that. So what do you think is the missing element to capturing that social capital?
I think that's a good question. No?
Yeah, I was thinking of this earlier as well. Do you mind if I speak a bit on
Yeah, sure.
this?
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead. You're good.
Yeah, so my background, I've been on Steam. I'm mainly PC gamer for like 10, 15 years or so now. And yeah, I had a few talks or had a look at the current sentiment of like Web3 for on according to general gamers, and most of them don't really care about this. They think it's a scam just because of the negative publicity they've had so far. But as a gamer, I just want to play a AAA title or good games with friends. And right now, there's nothing of that sort of that has the same value in the current games at the moment. So you see all these AAA title games, they're still building. And the thing is, like Web3 game is still so new. You can say it's only been for like 2 years, but a AAA title game would take the runway to develop that would be normally 3 years plus. So we're not even there yet to have a AAA title game to come out, such as like Illuvium, which is still in like alpha. They're rolling out slowly. There's Ember Sword coming out, which I believe will be really good for RPG gamers. And yeah, another factor is the usability and UI. So there's no central place to store the games as well. So we hope that GG Quest will provide a place where gamers can store their achievements, link up with their friends, find guilds in the future. So you can get the games to connect to each other and find different game communities.
I agree with
Rick, you
you
got anything
on
else there? Yep.
Illuvium. On Illuvium, Illuvium honestly looks like a AAA game out of Epic Games or something like that.
Yeah.
And then there's also this other game it's currently in beta. It's called Katana Inu, and it looks absolutely sick. If you guys like games like Devil May
I
Cry,
love it.
uh, or games like God of War. It's just like that. You have your different classes and stuff like that, but it's really high paced and the graphics are good, and like the way they have their token and NFT module concepts. I think within like the next 2 years, it's going to be games like that really push forward the envelope and bringing in more
Mhm.
people to the industry. You know what I'm saying?
I,
And I, I see we have Grit Cult. What's going on, Grit Cult? We're just talking about kind of just branching on the same topic that we spoke upon on Saturday. So feel free to join us if you want, brother. Good to have you here, man.
Yeah, no, appreciate you guys bringing me on. Yeah, I just want to say, having worked at a metaverse company, having worked alongside, some of the guys that made Need for Speed Underground and like some other, big EA games. I worked with guys that were in a studio and then they were brought into a metaverse. Yeah, like what the previous speaker said, I don't know who it was, but like, yeah, it's super early, um, unbelievably early, and the life cycle of development for these games are like crazy long compared to how quick the market moves. So like getting a proper game that's properly integrated, I think by the time it comes out, there's a huge risk of the tech being outdated in terms of like blockchain and NFT
mhm.
integration. So that's a huge kind of risk that I don't see a lot of people talking about. And just to kind of like, I think there's a lot more talent moving from traditional gaming studios to Web3. But again, it's like very slow and we're still very, very early.
If I can pick in this, I have a bit of a special opinion on this. So Web3 gaming is all, well, we praise a lot of NFTs, but if you look at like what's happening in, for instance, in Counter-Strike Go, like you have a marketplace with skins, and then there's a lot of discussions, what's the difference between an NFT and a skin? And I believe that the main innovation isn't there yet. And I believe that we will see that in small indie studios where we see like the most, the talker previously said, like the most talent is going to there. If you look at of on-chain games, you see really big brains trying to work on that. And I believe you will see game mechanics and progression systems we actually are building a progression system with GGQuest in terms of reputation and soulbound tokens. But I believe we didn't see it yet, and I think this is something that will come. And in a second phase, when those indie games have developed such systems that are game breaking, that have something new to add to gaming in general, thanks to the blockchain, and we know that it will come because we see all these developments going. We just need that click moment. Then AAA games and big game studios will just look at what is happening and pick that kind of mechanics up and implement in their games. So in my opinion, for your audience, if you want to be early in GameFi in general, I will bet on some indie games, on-chain games that are doing crazy stuff. And then mostly after that, you will see the bigger game studios that are big and slower in moving, in taking decisions, move to those kind of technologies they've implemented.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we also need to see some of those big backers. Sandbox is actually backed by Square Enix, and that's the studio behind games like Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. And what we're seeing with I'm talking platforms now. That's what I'm trying to look at. I'm trying to look more of like infrastructure. Where these sort of things can be hosted, and I'm going to say this again and again, every space, the only platform that I truly see that can onboard people from Web 2 at the current moment is Shibuya XYZ. If you guys want to look at what they do, just check out the Linkin Park music video, Lost. When you have something like that and you see like NFT collections and all that stuff, it's going to incentivize people to go into those ecosystems, and eventually that's going to trickle down into GameFi studios. And they're already bringing in household names, and it's like there has to be some sort of movement that's going to appeal to the quote unquote mainstream and not just like Ethereum L2s, right? Or some like farm Ponzi on a weird layer one, right? Like there has to be some sort of like actual actual incentivization for that kid in high school. He should be excited, like, man, I gotta go to this to this one chain to play this one game, right? And we just don't have that sort of scalability yet from what we saw last year, where to play Decentraland, the gas fees were almost $100, and that is just inexcusable. And I want to know, is there anything going on as far as that goes? I'm talking scalability. I want to talk like scalability now. I don't think I don't think these platforms should just be built on top of Ethereum, because even if something is like, it has it has a EVM and all that stuff where you can bridge to Ethereum. The main thing should be where the most users are. And currently, right now, it is ETH, but I am aware that it's going to be things like Arbitrum and all that stuff that are going to be hosted upon that. But I just don't see any development on that end. It just seems to be like, oh, let's just build on ETH and that's it. Let's get a bunch of money and then eventually rug people, So I'm trying to find something out. So is there any development on that end, guys? Is there something I'm not seeing?
From what I'm seeing, like in terms of development, um, I think the L2s will do well, like the ZK rollups. We have ZK VM from Polygon coming up. We already have Immutable Leaks. We have ZK Sync being a bit behind. It's coming up as well. So there are great scaling solutions which were mathematically not possible like a few decades, like 20 years ago, coming out, which is a great advancement to the blockchain industry, which was not yet available. But I mean, in terms of, it will be good for in terms of transaction costs and decentralization. It will bring privacy with ZK proofs. So I think ZK rollups will be something really to catch an eye on. Unfortunately, there's a lot of hype right now about it. It's a narrative right now. We're trying to trade it, but those things takes time. You need from my understanding, Polygon has like 30 ZK engineers on it, and you have smaller companies with 2-3 ZK engineers, which it will be difficult for them to compete with big companies like ZK Polygon, and perhaps even Starknet and Immutable and stuff like that. But yeah, but also, do you need decentralization in a game? That's also a question you can ask yourself. We see Avalanche with subnets, or we see now Polygon trying to do supernet, and we see Axie with and BSC with a small amount of validators. So those chains are very cheap, and you can do a lot of transactions on it. I was actually playing Pirates Nation. I should definitely recommend to your audience to look into that game. Everything is happening on chain. It gives you a really good experience. You buy your NFT on the Ethereum chain, and then you just click on the website, and then they bridge for you the NFT to Polygon, and then you play the game on Polygon, and you buy all kind of stuff with like very, very small amount of gas fee. So yeah, I think the solutions will come. We just need some time and patience, I guess.
Go ahead, Great Colt.
Cool. Yeah, there's a few things I just want to say. I'd say the protocol stuff, I mean, and the infrastructure level is like, I believe we're still in the like late 80s if we're going to compare to the internet. That's how like underdeveloped crypto infrastructure is in general, in my opinion. I think it can be in terms of user onboarding and so on. It still lags behind a lot of things. And what we've seen, the reason why like Metaverse company and Metaverse as a whole category was kind of pumped was mainly because of venture capitalism and investors just making a shit ton of money, and obviously Facebook also contributing to that. But yeah, again, a lot of the kind of infrastructure is not in place, like on-chain payments being cheap and so on. But aside from that, what we can also see, and there has been like research done this and so on, the people that are playing Web3 gaming are in their 30s. That's the largest group, and then the second largest group is late 20s, and then it's like I don't know, early 20s, and then it's like Gen Z. Gen Z are not optimizing, or they don't want to play Web3 games. So I think before we even go into like all these kind of crazy things, and I do agree with the premise that it'll be the smaller studios that kind of like tick the box in the right kind of way. But I think what really has to be done first is to actually build a game that's worth playing. A lot of people have been playing games in Web3, initially due to essentially a pyramid scheme. They were early, so they made a lot of money, and they sold on to secondary buyers or the secondary market and so on. And then obviously, what do you have is Decentraland and all these other games of like 50 to 100 daily active users, which if anyone works in gaming is mind blowing, crazy. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. It's like you have to build something that's worth playing. A lot of stuff isn't. All right, there might be one or two things coming out, and yeah, it's all really about longevity. I mean, I'm talking more in terms of like building an online, large multiplayer kind of game. Where you have like an economy in game and so on. Like that takes years. There's some Eve Online that's taken like decades to get up and running. Again, it's like it'll take time.
Well, I think we're starting to build somewhat of the infrastructure. If you guys see what Yuga Labs is doing and some other small NFT products, they're slowly building that infrastructure, and it starts off with the NFTs and then the in-game models, and then Payne, I'm sure you know like what Wob is doing with the Pixelverse, and it's sort of like this Club Penguin-esque thing where it's like a lobby, and you guys will be able to interact with one another and play games together and all that stuff. Payne, if you wanna kind of give the Pixelverse pitch, that would be awesome, and I think more people need to be aware of these developments going on within Web3.
Yeah, sure, man. I think Pixelverse is probably pretty cool because there's like everyone played Pop Tropica and fucking Club Penguin and shit as a kid, and a lot of people paid for those memberships and like paid for in-game items, and like there's been a established marketplace for in-game items like digital collectibles or whatever for like 10 years, and there's really hasn't been a way where you could carry them from like maybe even game to game, or you know resell them. Like once you buy them, it's you have it forever. But I think there's a real opportunity for companies to basically make a marketplace for like these in-game items. Like, I mean, there's Counter-Strike, uh, a bunch of different examples, like where people have been trading the items basically OTC. And I'm sure once it becomes less taboo for like NFTs as a whole, because I think the general public still thinks they're like all a scam. Um, then once that like narrative switches and people come around to it, it'll be really cool because there's definitely tons of opportunity for game development there, and I think it's probably going to be bigger, way bigger than DeFi ever was, in my opinion. And we saw some of it last cycle with even like what was it? I'm blanking on the name right now. Well, dude, what was that game on Harmony?
DeFi Kingdoms.
Oh, yeah. DeFi
DeFi
Kingdoms.
Kingdoms. Yeah,
And they
yeah.
tried forking it on AVAX, and I'm not sure what happened, dude. But like once the
Well,
APR starts going down, it's just like why even play it if the whole thing is based around like the whole game is based around like to what I saw in 21. It might be a bit different now, but it seemed like the first Final Fantasy game, right? And like you talk to the characters and all that stuff, but like there's no action, there's no story, and I think with a lot of these NFTs, I think they also solve a lot of the microtransactions. And what I mean by microtransactions, it's like, all right, your typical video game costs around $70, right? But then you have all this downloadable content, all these skins, and by the time you know it, you're basically paying $1,000 to $2,000 per game. Believe it or not, especially when you include like the memberships, like Xbox Live or PlayStation Network and things like that. It really does add up. Even though some of these NFTs might be like, you know, a quarter ETH, a third of an ETH, what have you. When you add that up, to the current cost of these microtransactions, it's almost more or less the same. But I think with things like we were saying, Payne, I think there's going to be a marketplace for fractional NFTs, and I think they can serve as a purpose to get your foot in the door when it comes to the expansion of these collections. But how that would work, I'm not sure. I'm not a dev, so it's definitely interesting to see, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you guys.
yeah, just to add on to that, like I think if the entry fee has got to come down for these games, like because last cycle, I mean, it was like super frothy, and it was like, oh, you want to play that other game, Crabadabra? I don't know if you remember on AVAX. It was like,
Yeah, Kadabra, the crab game.
yeah, Cadabra, yeah, dude. It was like $2,000 if you wanted to like start the game. And it's like, dude, that's just never gonna actually
Yeah,
onboard a ton of people.
yeah. There has to be something that's done, man. Ultimately, I think it's gonna be infrastructure, dude. There has to be infrastructure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just to chime into this.
Stephen, go ahead.
Yeah, so I recall Star Atlas ships when they were about to sell. Like I think it started from 2K for a small ship up to 20 or 25K for like a guild ship. So one thing that Rick, Dace, and I had to talk about was that yeah, the entry cost as well is a really big problem because with Axie Infinity, they kind of solved it by having guilds where these mega whales can get people under them to like somewhat work for them but they get a percentage of profit as well, and they'll make quite a lot of money for that. Still a Ponzi scheme, but what we have with GG Quest is a thing called GG Peers, where essentially you can, in the future, we don't have full implementation of it yet, but hopefully we can sort out guilds under each game. So let's say under Illuvium, you can have X guild and B guild, and under those guilds have guild members, and hopefully they can get the infrastructure in the future to share NFTs or loan and borrow NFTs. So the cost of entry and barrier entry would be a lot lower for regular gamers. And
I agree, man.
yeah,
I definitely agree, and I think instead of there being incentive for token, I think that should honestly be fixed as soon as possible and add in some sort of NFT aspect to it. And then that NFT can perhaps qualify you to enter some sort of tournament to win the actual NFT. More like an incentive like that, because I think the opportunity that NFTs can give you is access to certain UIs, right? And by UIs, I mean like more exploration within the ecosystem. That could be something like a private room where you guys can access a game together, something like that. The possibilities are endless, and I think 2024, 25, 26. I think you're going to see a lot of that, kind of like in 2018, right, with DeFi. All we really had was things on Tron, on Neo. I think with ETH, all we had was Balance and then ETH Delta. And if you guys ever use those products, dude, I remember it took me like 8 hours just to do a swap with this one token called ICX. And I'm not even sure what they do anymore, dude, to be honest. They've rebranded like 1,000 different times, and then come to realize a few years later, DeFi is like this whole completely different thing, and there's all these uses. You can become an LP and then earn a token off of that LP and then borrow against it and then earn yield on it. It was quite insane, and I think the same thing's going to happen with these NFTs. Not only they're going to have like the same incentive as like some DeFi-esque elements. That's why we call it GameFi, but also the participation aspect. For the everyday user, I think things like fractional earning on NFTs and an NFT behind the NFT, sort of like, all right, you play the game, right, and you earn an NFT to go inside this giveaway. There's a whole lot of layers to it, and I'm really just spinning ideas off the top of my head. But it'd be pretty interesting to see what sort of developments can occur within the
Oh
next few
yeah.
years, and that's why we're having this conversation. And with that being said, I see we're a little bit past the halfway mark. If you guys are enjoying this conversation, my name is Wabi. I host these spaces here on Because of Bitcoin pretty much every day, and the topics can vary. And I've had people from VC, I've had founders, I've had developers, I've had people from the crypto community, NFT community, all sorts of things. So if you enjoy this content, feel free to follow us here at Because Bitcoin and turn on bell notifications so you can be made aware of when I do these crypto specific spaces. And if you enjoy global market coverage, we also have two other spaces Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. and 4:15 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, without further ado, let's continue the conversation. I see NJ in the crowd. NJ, what's going on? Big shout out to Trader NJ. I'll be hosting him on Tuesday. Time is to be announced, but it's probably going to be earlier in the day, given that there are some time zone differences. And that's why I always stress to you guys to turn on bell notifications, because the time can vary on my part. So, all right, let's continue the conversation.
I,
Go ahead, Rick.
yeah, I wanted to pick into the NFT part where like a lot of advancements we are seeing with NFTs, and that's basically what we are building on. We are building a reputation protocol, which is basically an NFT, but a non-transferable NFT, or we call it soul-bound token or soul-bound account, let's say. So basically, as a gamer right now with GG Quiz, or not right now, but in the future, you'll be able to participate in quests within the games. So we are partnering up with games where we can create like real engagements with the games in their games itself, and not so especially about like liking tweets and like what we see today and retweeting and tagging friends. No, real participation into games. And when you, for instance, one could be like be placed 5 times first in a first-person Web3 game, like If You Don't Die or something. And when you achieve that achievement, then you can claim your rewards. Your rewards will be a reputation. And so you earn reputation by contributing, by playing the games. So it's a great user acquisition tool for the games, but also for you as a user, you have a lot of benefits with it. What kind of benefits would you earn? For instance, if you are playing a lot of games, you can take your reputation that you earned, for instance, in one game to the other game. So imagine you were very good in Counter-Strike. Now you can take that reputation that you had being a global elite player in Counter-Strike and playing an RPG now, because everything is on the blockchain. And so you don't lose your achievement, your stats, and the reputation that you had in one game to the other. And so, for instance, we see a lot of, in blockchain in general, wallet tracking. So your biggest traders are most likely your influencers and stuff like that. But it will be the same in gaming. So you will have those gamers with a very good reputation, and they will be sought after by games. So games will want those hyper users in their games, because we understand that they participate more in the game, that they perhaps spend more money in the game. And so those people with high reputation, they will given access to early access to certain games, or even beta access to certain areas of games. They will be targeted for whitelists, for airdrops, and all those kind of stuff. So right now, just playing games and earning a reputation will give you huge benefits. Not as today, where you don't earn anything by playing games in Web 2, or in Web 3, we don't really have, you have the pay to earn, but it's not really playing, it's more farming. So by playing real games, you will earn reputation, you will have incentives for it. And another thing that I was talking about was like misbehavior, toxicity, cheating. At the end, when we'll have this reputation score set up, what we could do is give that data to games, and these games can implement that in a ranking system. So you, as a reputable player that is not cheating and not griefing in games, you will now end up with other gamers with a high reputation. And so we will set up degens against, let's say, cheaters and hackers against each other, and people with a high reputation against each other. So you have a better game experience than before in Web 2. Because in Web 2, what you end up a lot against toxic players or cheaters or whatever, even if they're highly ranked, you know? So we are solving a big issue with reputation, which is this toxic behavior and stuff like that, and cheating in Web2 games. And that's thanks to the blockchain technology and people advancing on the concept of NFTs, and it just keep going forward, you know. We see new NFT standards popping up and stuff like that. So yeah, it's amazing that we see now real innovation going on in gaming, thanks to the blockchain technology, let's say.
Rick, and where can people find you guys at GG Quest?
Yeah, so right now we have a Twitter at GG_Quest_GG. But it's not that very active. We did some videos about some strange things to hype it a bit up. but we are about to launch our GG Peers community, which will be the first, let's say, the founding members of our community. We will have a lot of access to early games and incentives, let's say. And we will have early access to our questing page that will come in the following weeks through an application form. So we will do an AMA about it, and you could then from the GD Quest Twitter page learn about this AMA and join it and understand what we are building. And yeah, you can also follow me if you want on Twitter. So yeah, that's basically it. The Discord will be open in a few weeks after that. So everything takes its time. We prefer to deliver a good product than to rush everything. Yeah.
Oh, so it's still very early then, yeah.
Oh yeah. We have been building only since July.
So we're early.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We're early.
Very early. Like I said, it's my first Twitter space, so you guys got a premiere here.
All right, good, man. It's good having you here. If anyone in the audience wants to come up and give some statements, ask some questions, feel free to click that request button in the bottom left, and I'll be happy to oblige you. And yeah, you can join the conversation. Otherwise, I think we'll start to wrap up. We'll give it a few moments if anyone wants to come up and join our conversation or ask any questions. Oh, well, all right then, man. I guess we'll start to wrap up. Let's give some last thoughts from the speakers. Grid Cult, any last thoughts, brother?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Yo, Trader NJ.
Good to hear
What's
your
up,
voice,
bro?
Good to hear your voice. Yeah. Apologies for any brevity. I'm on the phone microphone and not my actual microphone. But I do have a question. For the speakers. So number one, a big shout out to Wabi for setting these up. These are really, really vital spaces, and I think they're really educational for people going into the next cycle. Number two, I wanted to know, crypto, as much as it's evolving, I want to know when these games are going to start coming out that will actually have the type of engines and the type of graphics, the type of gameplay that we have on PCs, on PS5s, on Xboxes. For the speakers who have been talking about GameFi, when do you think that kind of technology will start being put into cryptocurrency?
I think 2025, and I think it starts off with NFT hosting platforms like Shibuya XYZ. So it's basically like it combines everything from Netflix in the sense that it gives a sort of series and backdrop to collections and games. So it's sort of like adding to a lore, right? And it answers the question, what makes me want to play with this game? What makes me want to interact with this piece of art? It's always trailers, right? It's always some sort of cinematics, animations. You want to see some effort from the promotional side. And I think Shibuya solves that. It solves the question of, how do we onboard people from Web 2 to Web 3? So it starts off with hosting platforms. That's the one thing. And second, you also have to start thinking about like hardware components, like what I'm building with this SDK, can it be relayed onto things like augmented reality, right? With things like Web 2 type of technologies. And I think Saga XYZ solves that problem, right? That's the end goal for Saga. So there are already some platforms that are building this, and I think we'll probably see it in 2025, 2026. But I think second half of 2024, you'll start seeing like, users like us being active in the community, being able to interact with these products. Because there are certain things called incentivized like test nets, quote unquote, for these GameFi products. And I think it's going to be games like Katana Inu and Illuvium that are going to add that fun component to it, right? And Katana, again, it's sort of like high paced, sort of Devil May Cry, Castlevania, Final Fantasy kind of action. Really, really a lot of like theatrics and stuff like that. and they center all the reward system towards the NFT and the token itself, right? And for Illuvium, I haven't really kept up with them, but I know they've sort of done like a soft rebrand, and I know there's a variety of components to it. Like they add some turn-based stuff, they add some sort of Fortnite type of gameplay, like third-person shooter and all that stuff. I don't think they're really live yet. And then you also have things like Sandbox, which still hasn't been like fully scalable to the point where it's easily accessible. And I think the first thing we have to focus on are hosting platforms, and it's gonna be individuals like Emily Yang developing Shibuya, right? Unless I'm missing something and I've missed like another platform that's trying to be a host of hosts, right? And that's the first thing, sort of like Ethereum, right? Ethereum was like the hosts of all smart contracts, and if you didn't work within Ethereum, like build a bridge, then you just didn't make it. Look at all the projects from 2017, 2018 that tried to do their own thing. I mean, NJ, you were there, right? Like Icon, Aeon, Wanchain, they all wanted to do their own thing, and they just ignored the user base off of Ethereum, right? And look at what happened. Sometimes you just have to play ball, right? Work within that community, and then do like little proposals here and there, kind of like Matic, right? Matic started off as just something built on top of Ethereum, and then fast forward a few years later, they're building their super nets on Saga, and eventually they want to do their own chain via Polygon Edge. So I think it starts off with that, you know what I mean, the core infrastructure, the host of hosts. So Rick, what's going on, brother?
Yeah, I think you got a big point there. I also wanted to add like what I think about what's needed and when will it come. As I mentioned before, I think it will come more likely from smaller studios and indie games. And when we have this aha moment, this click moment, then bigger development studios will pick it up. They will not take that risk directly, I would say. So when they see that this kind of mechanism that indie developers have used, something very unique in blockchain gaming, then they will apply their AAA graphics on it, etc. But I don't see them doing that before any indie developer would do, because they can do it at smaller scale. And also we see a lot of, like I said, a lot of talent on the on-chain gaming part. So that's certainly like a niche to look at.
Yeah, man, I agree with you on the small studios as well. I think there has to be a collaborative effort, and I'm excited for the next couple of years. And I've pinned the link up on top for that Linkin Park video that Shibuya worked on. I think it's absolutely amazing, and I think it's going to completely revolutionize things like content streaming, things like music videos, and all that stuff. So, yeah, man, it's been great speaking with you all. I want to take the time to express my gratitude for everybody here and the listener audience and to our speaker panel. Thank you guys so much for supporting what we do here because Bitcoin. Again, my name is Wabi. I host these pretty much every day. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern time. We will be following up with part 2 of our Saga XYZ series. I'll be hosting the official Saga XYZ handle as well as one of their founders, Jin Kwan. So look forward to that. It's going to be just about an hour, like we try to do with all of our spaces here. So with that being said, if you enjoyed this kind of content, feel free to follow us here on Twitter and turn on bell notifications so you can see when we go live with these spaces. And in about 5 to 10 minutes after the space is concluded, it will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. So thank you guys. And let's follow it up with some final words from Grit Cult, and then Payne and Steven. Grit Cult, any last thoughts, brother?
Yeah, regarding timelines and future predictions, I'd probably go around like 3 years. like something that's triple A to kind of come out. The reasoning behind that is mainly because developing a game takes ages. You can Google how long it took to make either GTA or Red Dead. So if you're looking for something of that scale and of those graphics, yeah, it's going to take a very long time. But yeah, like I think smaller stuff is going to kind of come in as well. In terms of method of development, a lot like better games tend to be, all planned and then worked upon and, delayed a bit and then kind of come out. There's another kind of trend of games where they're like, Cyberpunk, where, they rush to development and they just like iteratively improve it over time through, an agile method, as they call it. So, I don't know. Yeah, I think around 3 years is a good kind of mark of seeing everything kind of integrated. A lot of things, I think one of the main things that people don't really think about, and it was a problem that I've encountered working on these kind of games, is like a content management system. How do we kind of connected,
Oh man,
and how do
you roboted hard there, brother.
I what? Sorry.
You roboted. It was like some strange alien language. You roboted like the words you were saying were not audible. Like the last bit you said.
I mean, what was the last bit you heard?
3 years. You were talking about how it's going to take 3 years, and you were giving your thesis. It was just like the last 15 seconds that just passed.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the main thesis is to keep it short. Is it's a very long software development lifecycle. In terms of planning and all these kind of like micro features. Um, Again, Google. How long it takes to make something like Red Dead Redemption or GTA. So if you want that level of multiverse, it's going to take a very long time, even if they start today. And in like 5 years' time, I predict that the Web3 ecosystem is going to look very different. So again, like something might come out and it's really good in terms of graphics, but we might not use that specific chain that they're using, or we're using a different sort of NFT system, and they just don't have the content management system to kind of integrate with it. And again, it kind of relates to like size of the project you're working on. Obviously, smaller, it's gonna be quicker, but yeah, I'd say roughly like 3 years. And again, like I've always said, in terms of gaming, like just basic payment infrastructure, I think, maybe wallet to wallet, but like, buying assets and stuff, I still think, there can be infrastructure kind of built up.
Steven, any final thoughts, brother?
Yeah, I just want to say that we still have a really long way to onboard general gamers and to change the consumer sentiment. Because if you go on Reddit, for example, or Reddit gaming, where all the general gamers are like, chilling at, they all hate Metaverse, hate NFTFi, hate GameFi, and think we just need to like be aware of this, need to make the UI easy for them. And they also need a place to, let's say in the future, track the game's histories as well. So with GG Quest, we'll hope to make it a place where gamers can track their achievements, link up with the histories, and see how early they are in this space. So let's say in the future, you're playing in the sandbox, you can be one of the first 1,000 users, or if you really have an account there. So yeah, I think we've got a long way to it. And I think 2024 as well, which somewhat aligns with the Bitcoin halving, and that might be another boom where Bitcoin be all over the news again, and hopefully the big true GameFi run will be at the time.
Payne, any final thoughts, brother?
Not too much, man. Good conversation today. I enjoyed speaking with all the other panel members.
NJ, any final thoughts, brother? I hope we answered your question pretty thoroughly, man. Good to have you up here.
No, thank you, man. Thank you. It was a good answer. It was a good answer. It's just when I think of things like, FIFA. Take FIFA as an example, right? You got 11 guys kicking a ball around, but the amount of people that spend money on that, If we could capitalize on that in the crypto space, if we could focus on a game that had deep code and a team that really worked hard on it and really did put a year or two into it, I think the space would evolve. That said, final thing from me would be, going back to what you previously said about the altcoins from 2017. Yeah, they did want to do their own things, but the difference that we have now going into 2024, 2025 is we've got saturation in the altcoin market now. We've got so many altcoins, and the competition is going to have to evolve in order to see the type of gains that we saw in 2021 and 2017. But that's it from me anyway. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about when I jump on your show, my bro. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for the speakers for answering my question.
No problem, man. Look forward to our conversation on Tuesday. Ferry, is there anything you wanted to say before we close the space?
Yeah, what's up, Wabi? Yeah, I just wanted to add this. I'm like a first-person shooter. I like squat. I play it a lot. And like what Steven said, I sometimes ask the guys, which way I'm playing with. Like, do you know something about GameFi? And all of them know shit, bro. So it's still a long way to go. And they just did an update, and you can now buy kits with PayPal. So they are updating it, but yeah, it's still with PayPal and no crypto involved, man. And it's a very good game, realistic, and a lot of users, but still nothing with crypto, man. That's all, bro.
Yeah, no problem, man. I think we'll see some developments on that end over the next few years, but definitely a concern to push, especially when it goes on the lines of how do we add more users and more involvement within these ecosystems. So with that being said, guys, thank you all so much for participating. You can catch the replay in about 5 to 10 minutes after the space is concluded. If you like this conversation, follow us here at Because Bitcoin. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you all so much. Have a good rest of your Saturday. Thank you to all the speakers. Feel free to give them all a follow. Thank you all so much for participating. Have a nice rest of your Saturday, and God bless you. Bye-bye.
The trading current is just math. It's just math. It has a 95.45% hit rate when we deviate outside of CP2 and CN2. All you had to do is recognize that 95% of the time when we get over here, under this blue line, we get some sort of mean reversion. So let's just assume you long right here. 95 out of 100 times, when I buy this, I'm gonna get some sort of bounce. It's just math. Look what would have happened as we move up. Look at the bounce that came after. And now look where we are. If you had just blindly followed the current, you take all emotions out of it, and you say, I'm going to trust the statisticians. You would have bought Dow Jones somewhere down here under 30,000, depending on how you want to measure it from absolute top to bottom, 20% move. We also have multi-time frame alerts. You don't even have to be at your computer on TradingView. You can ping your phone. Now, the current has some really awesome features, and I would urge you guys to join our Discord to get access to it. We give it away for free as a tool to the community. It's just math. There's really no need to overcomplicate things, not even in the slightest.